What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Two Worlds Podcast. I'm Jake, and with me, as always, not on this podcast, but in life, is my girlfriend Brielle, the Wonder Woman to my Steve Trevor. Hello, Brielle.
Hi.
Casey is, well, he's not gone. He's on vacation with his girlfriend. They're in Florida. He decided taking a vacation was more important than doing this week's episode, so I'm putting everything on my back, and Brielle is here to help me out for a little bit. We've got a couple of fun segments we'll introduce. But anyway, we'll hop into the news now. First and foremost, well, it's a shame Casey isn't here because he would be really excited for this. There was a new DC series announced this week. Deathstroke will finally have a new series again after the Priest series wrapped up during Rebirth. This one is going to be called Deathstroke Inc. It'll be written by Josh Williamson, and the art will be done by Howard Porter. And the little blurb they gave is that Deathstroke will take out DC's heavy hitter villains. So that is just going to be a summer blockbuster movie in every issue because it's going to be Deathstroke fighting other villains. So I'm sure I can speak for Casey when I say that we're both very much on board for that, and that will be out this September. Next, this week, WitcherCon was announced. WitcherCon is going to take place on July 9th. Netflix and CD Projekt Red, who developed the Witcher games, did a little thing on Twitter where one asked the other if they were free for a meetup on July 9th. And of course, it was all over Twitter and Instagram and Reddit that day. It's probably going to be more on the Netflix side of things. We know that the season 2 of The Witcher is coming out later this year. And then I imagine this will either be a first look at the 2 new Witcher themed Netflix shows, one of which is an anime prequel that is about Vesemir in his younger days. And then the other one is a live action short series based on the rise of the Witchers when Witchers were first becoming a thing. I also imagine that CD Projekt Red will announce a remaster of Witcher 3, which I think Witcher 3 has been out for 6 years now. So it's the thing that video game companies do. They remaster their old games instead of making new ones.
Okay, but what would you do if instead of announcing a remaster, they announced a new game?
I don't know if I could contain myself in excitement if that were the case. I have had this dream with probably every other Witcher fan at this point that they would make a game in that time where Witchers were becoming a thing, and you could create your own Witcher and choose which school of Witcher. Like Geralt's from the school of the wolf, but there's griffin and bear and cat and others as well. So
Okay, follow-up question, which school are you? And then move on.
So each one focuses on a different area of expertise. The cat is like stealth. The bear is like all power. The griffin, or maybe it's the manticore, one of them focuses on like potions and alchemy. And then the wolf, I think, is kind of just the jack of all trades school. So being such a huge fan of Geralt, it's hard not to pick wolf, but you don't really know a lot about the others. So I would have to do like some lore research and decide which one I'd really want to do. But anyway, that's really exciting stuff, and I can't wait to hear what is announced that day. All right, so good news. There's a new Darkhold comic announced through Marvel in September. If anybody watched WandaVision, we know that the Darkhold is coming back around. They did a series back in the 90s, but anyway, WandaVision ended with Wanda studying the Darkhold and maybe being influenced, question mark, by it. So that's cool. The bad news is that it's written by Steve Orlando, and I think he's mostly terrible. And by that, I just mean I haven't read anything that I have liked. So we'll see. I'll probably give it a shot because I'm a sucker for the magical corners of the Marvel and DC universe. I just hope that maybe this is the one where I'm like, you know what, Steve Orlando, you're okay in my book. So we'll see. Oh, and then the art will be done by Cyan Tormey. I probably butchered that, but that's how I'm going to go with it. All right, and then my last bit of news. I saw an interesting piece on the internet this week that Lunar could possibly start to distribute Marvel comic books in the near future. So pretty exciting.
What would that mean for you as a store owner?
What an interesting question. I so far have loved Lunar since they have taken over the distribution of DC Comics. That happened in April of 2020. Just a short recap for those that don't know, Diamond decided that they weren't going to print any books during April of 2020 because of COVID. And DC, whether you think this is a good idea or not, was like, well, even if shops are closed right now, we still want to make money and put our comics out. So we're leaving Diamond and we're just going to make our own distributor and put our stuff out there, which ended up being a great thing because Diamond sucks, as I mentioned probably every single episode, but also they do everything right and so much better than Diamond has ever done. And the little blurb that I read, this is a quote. This was from Christine, somebody at Lunar. She said, "We do intend to distribute Marvel as a wholesale account once Penguin Random House allows the opening of new wholesale accounts for the direct market sometime next year. We also plan to add new publishers to our distribution family in the coming months." The quote should say that 100 to 150 new employees are projected in the coming 5 years. So my store is already signed up for an account through Penguin Random House just because any chance to not use Diamond, we hopped all over. So, you know, I'm still going to wait and see what all that means. I don't know if this means that they could be a middleman like Diamond will still be. Like, yeah, I can order Diamond or DC and Marvel through Lunar, but maybe the Marvel would be delayed because it has to come from Penguin first. I don't know what that means. I'm sure we'll find out in the coming months, but I'm still willing to give Penguin a chance. But I do think it's very exciting that they plan on adding other publishers to Lunar soon. I hope that means like Image and Dark Horse and Boom and Dynamite and IDW and anybody that that is exclusive with Diamond right now. I know that Scout has moved over to Lunar. I don't know. I just hope that everyone else starts to leave too and that Diamond is no more. So, anywho, that wraps up the news this week. We would have more probably if Casey were here, but he's not. So it's going to be a little more streamlined and less Casey and I rambling and shaking our fists and being grumpy old men. So now we will take our ad break and then we'll be back to talk some comics. So we'll be right back. All right. Welcome back. Thank you for listening to the advertisement. I'll tell you the comics that I read this week, and then we'll do our quick little news segment. So I read The Joker #4, Future State Gotham #2, Star Wars Bounty Hunters #13, Justice League Last Ride #2, Sonic the Hedgehog #40, Helm Greycastle #1, and Wonder Woman #773. Now, this new segment that we're doing for this episode is called Judge a Book by its cover, where Brielle, who hasn't read any of these books, just puts them in order of her least favorite cover to her favorite. So I will pass the mic to her.
Thank you, Jake. So for those of you watching, I will show the books. And for those of you listening, I will give a 3 to 5 word description of the covers. So I think that there are 7 books. There's 7 books. So coming up, last place, 7th place is The Joker. As you can see, it's scary. And if you can't see, it's Joker being scary, not good, last place. 6th place, this is not a bad cover at all, just my 6th favorite, is Future State Batman. It's just got a guy with a hood on, possibly on a motorcycle. It's pretty good. Apparently, I'm being told that this person is named Red Hood. Red Hood is on it. Okay. My next favorite one is the Star Wars Bounty Hunters. Now, I do like Star Wars. Chewbacca is on this cover. It's pretty good. It's not the best Star Wars cover I've ever seen, but it's okay. Coming up next is Justice League. We've got Wonder Woman in cool armor on the front. Her armor is gold. It's a good cover. Coming up, 3rd place, we're in the top 3. We've got Sonic. Now I like this because it's got a bunch of Sonic characters floating around with some fun colors. Now, 2nd place is a new book, and Jake said I didn't read any, but I actually did read about 3 pages of this before we had to shoot. So it was pretty good, and I will be reading it, but it's pretty cool. It's got some D&D-esque characters on it, which I like. And then finally, number 1, this is an amazing cover. It's Wonder Woman. It's the Pride cover. It's just Wonder Woman with rainbows around her with her cool whip. So that's the best cover this week. Hands down. I think Jake also agrees.
I do agree. It's absolutely gorgeous. And that was Judge a Book by its cover. So now I think that wraps up Brielle's time because I don't want to make her sit here and listen to me talk about the comics for the next bit of time. So thank you.
I get enough of that.
Yes, she does. All right, guys. So let's see here. I will start with Sonic the Hedgehog, number 40. So this was written by Evan Stanley. Art was done by Evan Stanley and Adam Bryce Thomas. I won't dwell on this for very long because, I mean, we all know what these Sonic comics are like. Sonic and his friends are fighting elemental themed robots in Robotnik's little crazy maze lair thing. But we do get a little background info on Belle, who is the marionette that Robotnik created earlier in the series. This was like a very clear end of the story arc where they all escape the maze place on Tails' airplane and they fly off into the sunset. And the little next month thing shows the Deadly Six. So I think we're going to get more of them in the next arc, which is always fun. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. There was lots of like cartoony fun action, and the art and the colors and the story is always a good time. So, all right. Next, I'll talk about Helm Greycastle. So this book I was actually supposed to get about a month ago, but due to a diamond mishap, as per usual, it never showed up. Number 2 is out this week, but I did manage to snag a copy of number 1. I wanted to read this because, like Brielle said, it is very D&D-esque, and I love Dungeons and Dragons, for those that don't know. But anyway, this was written by Henry Barajas, and then the art was done by Ramit Hondoko and Brian Valenza. So the art is very, very, very good in this book. I mean, for those that can see, there's a little hint of that, but You know, there's a bard, um, a dwarf berserker, a fighter, a mage, like any standard D&D class is a part of the team. And we find out that this group of adventurers, one of them was transporting a dragonborn prince, and then they got ambushed, and these like cat men made off with the prince. And then we find out that it's actually some like Aztec themed warriors and gods that are that seem to have some big plan to use the dragon prince. It was cool. This really was just like reading one of the D&D comics, where it's all this high fantasy mixed in with some Aztec history. So pretty neat stuff. um, and then included in the back is like a little campaign adventure that is compatible with the Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules. So I thought that was a really cool thing. um, but the art was good, the story was intriguing enough. um, you know, it was just a lot of setup like all first issues are. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, but like in the best way possible. um, and then, you know, a little bonus points there for the module in the back of the book. But this was super cool. I'm definitely going to read number 2 this week when I get back to the shop. And then next, I will talk about Justice League Last Ride number 2. I know that it was written by Chip Zdarsky. I have to find the credits page, which it's really just like a cute little scavenger hunt every single week. Here we go. The art was done by Miguel Mendonca. So yes, the League has Lobo, like we talked about at the end of issue 1. Some boom tubes are opening up all over Earth, and the heroes are in various places trying to evacuate people before all these bombs that are coming through the tubes explode. So we see Aquaman, because the sea life tells him that there's one opening up over the ocean. And then he gets there, and spoiler alert, I guess he dies, question mark, because they don't read Arthur's communications device, and it sure looks like one of the bombs explodes right in front of him. So not really sure how apocalyptic explosives work, but it's probably not a good sign. And yeah, we get some Batman and Manhunter on Apocalypse trying to figure out what Darkseid's up to. John Stewart and Superman are out trying to rescue the Guardian, or like a Guardian. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing with the back and forth of what happened in the past and what is current. It kind of like it took me out of it a couple times, and I'm like, wait, are we in the past or are we current? Because everyone's kind of angsty with each other. Because as we found out in the first issue, the team split up, but now they're back together to keep Lobo away from Darkseid. But anyway, Darkseid does pop up, and Batman, Wonder Woman, and Flash, who have Lobo in a cage on a spaceship, get to Apocalypse. And that's sort of like the last page. So this book was kind of filler. Still entertaining because Zdarsky is such a good writer, but I'm going to give it a 6 because really not a lot happened. It's just Darkseid finally shows up. But anyway, it's still cool. Like the art's good, the story's good. I want to see what happens with Lobo and Darkseid and all that. So definitely still on board for the series. Next, we've got Star Wars Bounty Hunters number 13. And this is written by Ethan Sachs, and the art was done by Paolo Villanelli. And really, I'm not sure that this War of the Bounty Hunters crossover needs to be on the scale that it is. It doesn't really need to cross over between all the titles because it feels a lot like that last season of Arrested Development where we're seeing the same exact event happen from other people, like everybody's point of view, which is fine. It's just like, okay, but we're seeing the same event happen with just like little scuffles sprinkled in each different issue. But anyway, Chewbacca and 3PO are on Nar Shaddaa. They're looking around for Han. And then Valance and Dengar show up, and Valance kind of bumps into Chewbacca, who recognizes him because they've met before. And Valance tried to kill him, but he's like, "Wait a second, Chewbacca. I know that we fought before, and I tried to kill you, but I really don't want to kill you. You can believe me or not, but I want to help rescue Han because when we were both Imperial cadets, he saved my life and saved my soul whenever the doctors were putting me back together. So I owe Han to try and get him away from Boba Fett and out of the carbonite." And Chewbacca, which we see translated through 3PO, is like, "Okay, fine, I'll let you live. And if you help Han, that's fine, but you're not going to do it with me, and you have to stay out of my way." And then Valance finds out that the Crimson Dawn is back, and they're the ones that stole Han from Boba. And yeah, then Valance and Dengar fall under attack from. It looks a lot like that assassin lady from Attack the Clones that Anakin and Obi-Wan fight. I know it's not her because she dies, but anyway, some assassin lady is trying to take out Valance. And it looks like that's where it's going to pick up next issue. So this really wasn't important to the overall War of the Bounty Hunters story, but it's kind of hard when Charles Soule is like, "Here's this event that I'm doing. It's going to cross over all these other books, and some of these other writers just have to deal with it, basically." So the book was as good as it could have been for being forced into this crossover. It's just like nothing really happens apart from Valance and Chewie and 3PO want to help out Han. So I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I didn't hate it. There was just nothing that was like, "Oh man, that was awesome," like some of the other tie-ins have been to this point. So all right, next I'm going to talk about Future State Gotham #2. And this was written by Joshua Williamson and Dennis Culver, and art was done by Giannis Milanoyanis. Gosh, kind of sound like Casey with some of these pronunciations, but anyway, this book was pretty cool. I still really dig the all black and white and like shaded look. There's no color in this issue at all, but it lends itself really well to the story. But anyway, the current Bat family has surrounded Jason, as shown at the end of the first issue. And Jason is trying to talk to them and explain that, you know, he's not just this traitor that they all think he is just because he's working for the magistrate. But they're not falling for it, and they try to fight him, but he escapes. And the people of Gotham are starting to realize, well, maybe the magistrate isn't everything that he's cracked up to be, because Batman, and I put that in quotes, blew a bat-shaped hole in Gotham City, and they're like, the magistrate is supposed to protect us from stuff like this, and Batman wouldn't, you know, kill a bunch of citizens. So, you know, maybe we just need to take matters into our own hands. And the magistrate doesn't like that because he has complete control over everybody and, you know, doesn't want any assembly and all that. So Lots of stuff is cooking. Jason goes to Blackgate and he says he wants to talk to somebody there, but Batman shows up, and um, not Bruce, but the next Batman shows up. And yeah, Jason wants to arrest him because that's his job and it would get the magistrates off his back. And also, I forgot to mention, but right before he goes to Blackgate, he goes and talks to Bruce and he's like, hey, the family's like trying to kick my butt. We need to tell them that one, you're alive, and two, that I'm just undercover and I'm not really working for the magistrates. But Bruce is like, no, we can't do that. I have a plan. We need to keep all of this a secret for just a little bit longer. You have to trust me. So then he sends Jason to Blackgate. Jason runs into the next Batman. And then right before they're about to duke it out, an alarm sounds and all the doors in Blackgate open up. And then Jason and Batman are surrounded by, let's see, we see Clayface and Two-Face and Victor Zsasz and Killer Croc and a couple others. So I'm guessing the next issue is going to have a big old fun fight between all these people. Then there's a little backup story by John Ridley and Olivier Coipel that's all about next Batman. And it was fine. The art's really good. I'm a huge fan of Coipel, but this is just like a short story about a bunch of racist thugs that used to belong to Penguin's gang who now call themselves the Igloo Boys, boys being spelled Bois, which was hilarious to me. I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but I think it's hilarious. And anyway, Batman and his new, I don't know what she's going by. I don't know if it's Robin or something else entirely, but his younger sister who is helping him out. They escape and beat up all the nasty racist thugs, and then they run away. I mean, it was a perfectly fine story. I don't really know that there was any point to it, but I really like the main story a lot. The future state stuff I thought was good, and this is just a continuation of that, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. All right. And then next, I'm going to talk about Joker number 4. This was written by James Tynion and art was done by Gwen March. So we've got Bane's daughter going through the jungle to try and get to Joker. And a lot happens. There's like a lot of good action, but a lot is going on. So Bane's daughter is there with all of her Bane people. And then, Jim's there because Joker caught him and is there talking to him. And then Buddy and, what is her name? Vicky. Buddy and Vicky Sampson are there. And they're all just trying to capture Joker and or kill him. And Joker just lets off a bunch of nerve gas so that he can get away, but he takes Jim with him and Buddy. And he makes Jim watch while he basically threads some hot wire through Buddy's face and then like rips it off. It was very gruesome, but very, very in character for Joker. And then has like a little chat with Jim about good and evil, and basically tells Jim, I'm going to leave you tied up here because I still have business that I want to attend before I return to Gotham, and my next plan to bring down Batman. And he leaves. He says he's going to Europe. I don't know why he told Jim where he was going, but guess that moves the story along. And Bane's daughter shows up and lets Jim free. And she's like, go home, Mr. Gordon. You're already drowning in the darkness. Head back to the light while you still can. and then she leaves. And it says next, year one. This was a really, really good issue. While there was a lot going on, it was all necessary and none of it felt rushed or like confused or anything like that. We did get a little bit of Barbara and Stephanie and Cassandra trying to figure out who this Cressida lady is. The one cool part is after they do a little reconnaissance on Cressida, Barbara tells Stephanie and Cassandra to go home and get some sleep for the night, and that she is going to keep watching Cressida at her hotel. And the final scene with Barbara in it shows a Talon standing right behind her in the darkness. So that was pretty neat. The backup story about Punchline is kind of whatever. I know I skip a lot of these backups or like just don't care, but you know, I'm reading this for Joker, not for Punchline. But overall, the book was really cool. I'm going to give it probably a 9 out of 10 because I really like this book. All right. My last book is Wonder Woman 773. This was written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, and the art was done by Travis Moore. And this was like, I guess, the wrap up of the Norse story arc that we're in. But Wonder Woman goes to the fortress of the Valkyries and tries to talk to them, but Thor and his Viking warriors follow her in there, which is a big no-no to the Valkyries because only Valkyries are allowed in there. And a big fight breaks out, and Wonder Woman finds out that the Thor is using a magic Mjolnir made by Dr. Psycho. And all these magic weapons that Thor and the Vikings are using are being influenced by Dr. Psycho and making all of their bad traits come out, basically. So Wonder Woman destroys his Mjolnir, and basically they all kind of snap back to themselves. And they have this big meeting with the Valkyries, and basically come to an arrangement that the Valkyries are tired of just day in and day out going and collecting bodies just for them to turn around and die the very next day. So they're sick of their vicious cycle. And it's kind of funny because they come to this arrangement that the Valkyries will get a day off every week to do what they want to do. But then the other 6 days of the week, they're back to collecting bodies and returning souls to Valhalla and stuff like that. And they deemed the first day off would be known as Thirsty Thor's Day. So that happened. But anyway, it was good that that Thor just kind of wasn't the big dumb oaf jerk that he normally is the entire time that they did have a meeting and bring about some sort of peace to Asgard. But Wonder Woman did find out that the reason that the world tree Yggdrasil was dying is because since the Valkyries weren't collecting these warriors and whatnot for the warriors to come back and keep fighting and dying, that the lack of blood on the battlefield was not nourishing Yggdrasil. And that's where Yggdrasil got all of its nutrients. So, it all worked out. The tree can deal without blood for 1 day a week. And then the rest of the time, everyone's back to fighting and killing so that the world tree doesn't die and release Nidhogg, the serpent, and, all that good old Norse mythology stuff that happens. And then Diana gets back to Valhalla where she finds her friend Siegfried, who's, way more good looking than all the other Vikings here. So she decides that before she leaves Asgard, she's going to have her night of fun, and she gets hers, which we're all about, right? I mean, if Wonder Woman wants to have a night of lusty fun, then let her have it. So Anyway, she wakes up the next morning, and her and Ratatosk, the little magical squirrel from the World Tree, decides that they're going to travel together to go see what's going on in Olympus. And before they leave, Siegfried shows up and says, I want to come with you, but if you don't want me to, then at least take this cool sword. And Wonder Woman says, well, I'm never one to turn down a free cool sword. So she takes it. They have a nice little wholesome goodbye. And then Siegfried's eagle friend flies them off out of the realm and into Olympus. And the last page is them getting to Olympus, and all of it is on fire and or destroyed. And Diana says, by the goddess, what's happened? And it says, to be continued. So it was pretty cool. I really, really like seeing Wonder Woman inside Norse mythology for once, instead of, Greek. And if she's ever been in Roman mythology, but it was really cool. I liked it. Everything wrapped up nice. I'm gonna give it like a 10 out of 10. There really wasn't anything to complain about. There's a couple like little goofy things, but not enough for me to be like, well, it's a 9 or an 8. So I really liked it. I hope that that maybe someday she'll revisit this Norse realm. But it was cool. I'm looking forward to where it goes next and seeing what happened to Olympus. So yeah, anyway, 10 out of 10. Okay. So the comics that I am excited for next week, got my list up here. I'm definitely going to say Demon Days Mariko #1, because that first Demon Days issue by Peach Momoko a couple months ago was really, really good. And I've been looking forward to more of that since it came out. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to go with Nightwing #81, because Nightwing's been cool again, and that's nice to say. And then also, my most hyped book of the week, and maybe even the year, is Static Season 1 #1. I love Static. I thought the Milestone Returns book was really good, and it got me even more hyped for Static. So I can't wait for that series to finally begin. So hopefully that holds up to my expectations. And then Casey pre-recorded a Fantastic Four, so I'm going to play that right now. Hopefully it comes through well.
Two Worlds podcast. I'm here today to record. I'm in Florida, so I'm letting Jake take the reins and do this by himself. We're really mixing things up. So today's Fantastic Four is going to be give me 4 times in comic books where they have changed things up. So it could be, moving artists and writers to different books, or changing up the characters in the books, changing up the teams. I'm going to focus on that for my examples. So, for example, it'd be like John Paul Valley taking over as Batman, Ben Reilly taking over as Spider-Man. They changed Superman to like a blue electric character, or when the Fantastic Four switched and it was like Ben Grimm, like all extra rocky Ben Grimm's rock girlfriend, Johnny, and someone else. So let's hear yours, Jake. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Casey, for recording that for this episode. And that is a really fun one, because there's plenty of times where that's happened in comics. And I'll focus on one that wasn't great and then the others that were. So a couple that were great. I'm going to say when Bucky took over as Captain America during Ed Brubaker's run, it's the best Captain America I've ever read. And I mean it all. When I say that, I mean Ed Brubaker's Captain America. But I like that. I always had a thing for Winter Soldier. I thought it was super cool. So when Bucky took over and had that cool, like, revamped Captain America costume, I thought it was great. And then I think one I have to talk about is when Jane Foster took over as Thor. And I think that one was mostly good. I I read that right after I had just read, or I should say that was coming out right after I had read Jason Aaron's God of Thunder. So I was like, oh man, Thor is just so good right now. And then I start to read the weekly stuff coming out, and it's Jane as Thor. It's like, okay, well, I was more hype for regular Thor, but I'll give this a shot. And for the most part, it was really good. My only problem with it is that I think it ran for a little too long. And then by the end of it, Jane was just, as I've said before, unbeatable when Jason Aaron writes her. Um, which is fine. He loves the character. And for the most part, things are good. The one that's not so good would be when Rob Liefeld took over like the Avengers and all that back in the 90s for the Heroes Reborn the first time around that they did that. It was so bad. It lasted like 3 or 5 issues. And it was so terrible that they like retconned it immediately. And I think Mark Waid took over right after that to fix things. But they put a lot of hype behind that because Rob Liefeld was a huge name at that time. But nothing about it was good. So, and then my final one, it wasn't a very long stint at all, but when Black Panther took over as Daredevil, because Daredevil was dealing with the Shadowland stuff, and I think he was an actual devil at the time. So he asked Black Panther to take over and watch Hell's Kitchen for him while he was off dealing with that. And Casey actually made me read that back in whenever that happened, and I loved it. I thought it was awesome. The art was good. Just everything about it was super cool. So if you guys haven't read that, I know that there's a big collection of it, and you should check it out. It's just the one volume. But anyway, thank you for that, Casey. And then, yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the episode, guys. So I'll do the closing plugs. If you would, please go to facebook.com/2worldspodcast and give our page a like. You can also find us on Twitter at 2_worlds_PC and on Instagram at 2worldspod. You can email us at 2worldspodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on YouTube. Please go there, like, subscribe, click the little bells to get notifications, all that good stuff. And if you haven't yet, please review us 5 stars wherever you're listening to this podcast. It would help us out and we would really appreciate it. But, I'd love to stay and chat, but I have to go call Casey because I miss him. So bye, guys.